Hello to my communications class. My name is KJ West, and I'm here to present Living in the South Through the Eyes of My Grandfather. Some of you may have heard the stories or the plight of being an African American growing in the South. Being beat just for being black or disagreeing with white Americans, not being able to attend the same school as others, and those are just a few of the incidents. These are on the mild side as well, where this may have not been a good time for American history. My grandfather used this as a time for a learning opportunity for his children. Life lessons that have been handed down from generation to generation. He was not defined by his race, but by his hard work. Growing up in the South was not easy for my grandfather. However, he taught my grandmother and her siblings the importance of hard work, dedication to family, and ultimately the sacrifices that pay off. These characteristics serve to define him as a person and as a man. Today, I will share facts related to my grandfather growing up and provide a glimpse into his adult life. I will start by providing background in his early years, his emphasis on gaining an education or learning a trade, and the sacrifices and rewards he made by doing so, and finally, to share the big payoff that he obtained. Sherman Lee Thrasher was born on November 11th, 1908. He lived a long life and had the respect of all who knew him, regardless of race or gender, in a small town of Wetumpka, Alabama. He died at the tender age of 93 on March 11, 2001. He was small in stature, but large with his beliefs. He lived a life that was active and was considered extremely productive. My great-grandfather grew up in a time that was laced with racism in the South. A time in history where bombing of churches took place in Birmingham, Alabama. Governor George Wallace took measures to prevent integration of Alabama's school system, despite the court rulings in Brown versus the Board of Education, which was meant to end segregation, and the Selma Bridge Massacre are some of the many racist incidents that went on to define racism in Alabama and led to the difficult life for African Americans. My great-grandfather, however, had a slight advantage. A part of his heritage was Creek Indian, and due to his heritage, his complexion was a great deal lighter than most African Americans around him. This gave him the ability to pass as a white American. He used this to his advantage to gain access to many things he otherwise would have been denied, living in an era where signs that were posted for whites only, which meant African Americans could not attend or have access to these certain events. Every aspect of his life was dedicated to providing a better life for his children. Education was extremely important to him. He felt it was important to either attend college or learn a trade. He was a proud man and wanted his children to have a better life, regardless of their skin color. He often said, because of your race, you will need to work harder. Education was important because he did not go beyond the 6th grade. He encouraged his children not to follow in his footsteps and to complete high school. They were encouraged to go to college after it and learn a trade. He taught himself the trade of construction. By watching others, he learned all the components of building and implementing many safety measures to help ensure a safe structure. The trade gave him an opportunity to own a construction company and provide the financial support for his family that they needed. Earlier, I mentioned due to his skin complexion, he was able to pass as a white American. To do so was a big risk for him and his family. This was a sacrifice as it required denying who he really was in order to gain work. I consider this to be a risk reward. He was able to attend meetings that were designated for whites only. Recall, I mentioned earlier in the South, especially in Alabama, there were prominent signs that clearly read, whites only. It was illegal for an African American to attend these meetings. He attended these meetings and gained construction knowledge, which he used to compete and earn construction jobs that were for whites only. Additionally, during the time when banks would primarily lend only to white Americans, he was able to obtain loans for building houses and other things. The risk of doing these things paid off. He gained the respect of his white American counterparts and over time was welcome into meetings that were designated as whites only. The big payoff. My great-grandfather gained a great deal of respect in the community for his integrity, even though he tried to pass himself off as a white American. Professionalism and the quality of his construction projects was the cornerstone for his respect. His talent paid off, and he no longer had to misinterpret himself. He built several several of the commercial buildings that are now here in Wetumpka, Alabama. He also was successful in the residential home building market. Over time, he gained the nickname Pony. Anytime anyone mentioned his surname of Thrasher, the next question was if you were related to him, and if so, what was your relationship to Mr. Pony? He and my grandmother's family consisted of 8 children, 5 of which were males, and 4 of the 5 were able to learn all the parts of the construction business or specific trades that were related to construction. Each of them became successful entrepreneurs in the construction industry. My grandmother became an accountant, as a result, to help him maintain his business finances. My mother and her aunt entered the finance area as a result of my grandmother's experience. My mother has her own company now, and my aunt is the vice president of a nationally known title company. The legend of Mr. Pony still lives today. The Thrasher name remains one of prominence in Wetumpka, Alabama. In fact, my aunt won a scholarship when certain board members realized that Thrasher was her name, and that she was related to Mr. Pony. Her 1-year scholarship was then renewed for all 4 years as long as she maintained a C average, all while going to the University of Alabama. In the past, my mother and aunt were often asked to return to Wetumpka to speak to civic groups and help with construction projects. January 2014, my uncle would become the first paid fire chief of the fire department. Up until now, the fire department has been mostly volunteer. He is a 20-year veteran of the Montgomery Police Department. Today, I share with you the facts related to my great-grandfather growing up in the South, his dedication to obtaining education, the sacrifices he made in order to make a trade and provide financially for his family, and the big payoff he earned as a result of his hard work. Growing up in the South was not easy for an African American. However, my great-grandfather did not allow racism to define him. He worked hard and dedicated himself to his trade. His hard work is what defined him, and it was led to a productive and rewarding career in construction. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a nice day.